Hey, it's Rebecca Rutherford. Welcome to the What in the Well podcast. My friend Angie Huber and I are here to help provide an entertaining, unique, authentic, relatable perspective on well-being. We're trying to uncover what it means to maintain a balanced existence in all areas of your life: relationships, work, leadership, what have you. We want to help you shift your mindset, make real progress toward the work and home life you desire, while we share stories of how this stuff works in our own lives and in the lives of our coaching clients in the communities we serve. So if you feel out of balance, stuck, strained, overwhelmed, but hopeful that improvement is on the horizon, you are in the right place.
This is take 1 of What's in the Well.
That's right. So bear with us because we're just winging it.
We got some good stuff for you today.
Absolutely.
Rebecca, introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us who you are.
Well, thank you, Angie. I will. So I'm Rebecca Rutherford. I work as a business coach and marketing strategist and consultant. That's my day job, but my other day job and night job is to be a wife and a mother of 2 children, one in 5th grade currently and one in kindergarten. And let's not forget my dog, who takes up a lot of my time as well. She's a busy little beast, but that's me. Angie, how about you?
Yeah, so thanks, Rebecca. Angie Huber here. I think at the essence of who I am is just, I am a leader that has lots of corporate experience, but also building a coaching business that helps unlock and unleash potential to help individuals, teams, and organizations change. So I like to think that I am a behavior expert, getting people from current state to where they want to go. I also, with Rebecca, have three ever-changing kids that keep me on my toes, and a lovely dog who just loves me no matter what, named Gus. So I work full-time and building a coaching practice, and now jamming out with Rebecca.
I love it. So let's talk a little bit about who we want to reach in particular with our messages and with our witty banter.
Yes.
I mean, for me, I feel like at the end of the day, we are successful if we at least provide some level of relatability. I mean, as both working moms too, I have a feeling that our experiences and recommendations will hit home with other working moms, but let's not rule out anybody who could benefit from just working on themselves and becoming a better version of themselves, but also knowing that it's a lifelong journey. It's an iterative process. So
yes,
yeah,
I agree. Focus on any working mom or anyone that just wants to get a little bit better on themselves each and every day.
I love it. So,
and if you like humor, vulnerability, if you like to laugh and learn at the same time, this podcast is for you.
Absolutely. So today, in a very timely topic, we're going to talk about imposter syndrome, which is, as you and I have discussed before, highly prevalent. But in this situation that we're in with just the initial podcast that we're recording right now, I don't know about you, but I feel in this moment a little bit of a high degree of who the heck am I to talk about some of this stuff, right? Like my rational mind knows that I am well equipped to share my own experiences and to kind of feedback on what I see from other people who are like us, who are experiencing these things, coupled with my experience, my professional training to cover some of these topics. But I mean, yeah, it's like in the last 20 minutes, even, I would say I've had my most frequent bout of acute imposter syndrome. So how about you?
So the hour right before this, so from 9 to 10, I did something new that I'm doing at work with the team, and I had complete imposter syndrome the entire time. Like, I'm like, how am I here? Who belongs? Why am I facilitating this meeting? I'm credible. I have the credentials, but now they're letting me do the executive leadership coaching with an executive leadership coach and senior leaders. And I'm facilitating the conversation. How did I get here? Are they going to find me out? And then I thought this morning, 500 excuses why not to show up with you today at 10 o'clock. You got a house full of flu. I mean, the excuses were there on the table.
Yes.
And yet here we are.
Here we are. I know, exactly. So, and Angie and I, we make mistakes so that other people don't have to, and we're going to make a lot of mistakes here. But I think the point is, it's like, is it Susan Jeff? I don't know. I quote the book all the time, but it's called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing. That's one of the keys to imposter syndrome, handling imposter syndrome.
Yeah. And I would actually say, I think we're here to share with you as you make mistakes, because you're going to, and then it's okay. We're all going to make mistakes, but how can we learn from them?
Yeah.
And keep going.
So
hey, Rebecca, I'm curious, like, you might have your handy Google up. Maybe I'll look on my Google. How would we define, just for so we're all talking about from the same page, how would we define imposter syndrome?
Right. So I was looking into this a little bit more too in preparation, and I found several different articles who have pretty similar definitions of imposter syndrome. But the one that I tended to like was from a Healthline article that quoted a lot of things from PubMed. There are a lot of really good statistics in there about who this impacts, but their definition is imposter syndrome, also called perceived fraudulence, involves feelings of self-doubt and personal incompetence that persist despite your education, experience, and accomplishments. So that kind of ticks the boxes on everything we just talked about.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so let's unpack that for just a little bit, like self-doubt, right? So self-doubt is there, even though we know it's credible and like we should be at the table and we get to be at the table.
Right.
But what's underneath the self-doubt for you?
Yeah, for me, I've been actually reading a lot about this, because something that I have grappled with my entire life has been what is called in the book 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem. It's called pseudo self-esteem, where the two key components to having a healthy self-esteem are around self-respect and self-efficacy. So you can be somebody who shows up in the world as having high confidence, yet behind the scenes is a version of yourself that is often hidden from other people, that does not believe that you are worthy, that you know what you're talking about, all of the imposter syndrome components. So you can be both confident and capable and know that you're going to get something done and show up that way in the world and seem confident. But then at the same time, in spite of all that, in spite of the knowing that you're going to do a good job in something, you just don't believe in yourself.
And that's the piece
that
I think we're talking about here, because and I see that in, well, obviously in ourselves and what we just shared, but so many, and I'm gonna women, men too, but just so many women that I work with, that are just, it's almost like they don't see themselves in the way that the gifts and that others may see them, their gifts, their talents,
well, 100%. I think what I'm seeing, and I'm curious to know if this is, this aligns with what you believe so far about what's happening just culturally. Really, I think a lot of it, I mean, it extends beyond the United States, but let's speak from our perspective here, that men have always had, there are certain expectations the last however long, many years, that the men have certain roles and responsibilities. And if they're fulfilling those roles and responsibilities, then they're doing what they're expected to do. But women in particular, our expectations of how we're supposed to show up in the world have shifted dramatically in the last, 20, 30, 40 years, based on the fact that we are both expected, whether it's a self-expectation or a cultural expectation, we are expected to balance two completely different, conflicting jobs. It's your parenting or showing up as a wife or showing up as the world's best child to your parents who are aging perhaps, or whatever it may be, but being the best friend, the best, whoever you need to be in order to serve other people. And then at the same time, putting everything into driving this major career, very impressive career forward. And like, frankly, mathematically, I mean, it's not a you problem, it's a math problem. You can't be 100% of both at the same time. At best, you can be, you know, maybe 100% present at one of those things at the same time. But on a macro level, looking at your life, you can't possibly devote 100% of your attention to everything at the same time. That's just not how math works.
No,
So yeah.
And what's resonating for me and what I'm hearing you talk about is this idea of energies around masculine energy and female energy. And it's not necessarily gender based, but it's an energy. So female energy, a little more soft, it's reflective, it's a little more quiet. Masculine energy is the bold, the drive, and so how might we say, you know what, we get to be both, but not all the time and not in every situation. So where do we need a tug on? First of all, how do we just understand that the energies, the masculine energies and female energies? I have gotten to love and gotten to know both of those sides of me.
I love that. Yeah.
And where is that? So I would say more of the time, early days growing up or in my early 20s or what have you, is all masculine energy. Bold, badass, go, drive, yada, 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 get things done, productivity. I love that.
Yeah.
I wasn't understanding the reflection, the creativity, the nurturing energy.
Yeah. You know, you just gave me like 100 different light bulb moments. And so one, I want to clarify too, that I don't want it to come across that it's like a woman only issue, because I also think too, you defined it perfectly with the energy, the masculine energy and the feminine energy. And I also feel like in some cases, men being, you know, wired more masculine are kind of starting to feel this tipping point too, where it's like, okay, women are becoming a force to be reckoned with in the workplace. And where do I fit into this whole thing? And how do I pull back from my normal tendency or my cultural expectation to be a hard driving, productive, you know, use all of that masculine energy and then serve instead? Because I feel, and I don't know, I mean, we don't have to define it necessarily, but in my perspective, I would sense that it really has to do with service. It has to do with masculine energy almost feels more serving yourself or serving, you know, a cause or serving your own ambitions, whereas the feminine energy tends to be a little bit more about how can I serve others. And as we know, it's really hard to serve yourself and other people at the exact same time, and something usually is giving in that situation. So it's about finding that balance.
Yeah. And so back to what we were talking about with imposter syndrome, when you were talking about the credentials of how that we have and how we show up, but then the internal of how just who we are and how much self-love we have for ourselves. And I think that's what we're talking about with imposter syndrome. What else, like knowing, like what else is here with that? I think that could be helpful for our learners or our audience.
Yeah. So I guess for me, it's like I think it's clear to me that despite the fact that a lot of us choose not to talk about it, or it's humbling to talk about it, everybody has this to some extent. I mean, there are some exceptions to that, but I think more people than not have this issue. And I just would love to see people be a little bit more vulnerable about it, you know, and, you know, there's a time and place, of course, for everything when it comes to personal sharing. But I've loved recently how I've seen people become more open about, hey, I'm doing this presentation. And I got to be honest, I'm a little anxious here, so it might show up, or just kind of calling themselves out on it. Like that disarms anybody else who's listening or participating in that, to the point where they feel like it just kind of normalizes it a bit more. And it makes you feel like, frankly, less of an imposter, you know? So that's kind of something that I feel like is really important for people to understand, is that while most of us to some extent struggle with some version of this, that one of the things that we can do to help each other, to serve ourselves and to serve others, is just be open about it when the time comes.
In the coaching world, we call that our inner critic, or our saboteur is a fancy word. So imposter, inner critic, saboteur. I'll just share for a moment. Mine is a green gremlin. So my saboteur, and his name is Slimer. Yeah, from Ghostbusters. And he's got big, long arms, and he's gross. And anytime I'm doing something uncomfortable, or I'm stepping into a new space, or I'm honoring who I am and living out my purpose in uncomfortable spots, Slimer loves to show up, extend those arms like Inspector Gadget, wrap those green slimy arms around me so tight to where like I almost can't breathe.
Oh my gosh.
That is my imposter syndrome.
Okay.
So who are you? Who's your imposter syndrome? Who's your imposter? Who's your saboteur?
Let me tell you. So that's really, first of all, I'm LOLing, but I'm also cry-OLing with you, because it's both humorous, but also like it's sad in a way that like that has to exist. But at the same time, it's just so real. So I don't know, maybe I'm not sad about it, but I love that as a tool. I love the idea of personifying this entity that holds that saboteur personality that is not you, so you don't take it as personally, but it's
a part of me,
part of you,
right?
So my funny story about using a tool that's kind of like that is, as everybody knows, as I was younger, a lot of times I went by Becky. Like I had a lot of family, friends, whoever. My whole life, people always want to give me a nickname. I don't know what it is. I'm just nicknameable. But when I started my career 20 plus years ago, I started in these really fun, highly energized, super exciting cultural marketing agencies, these ad agencies that were like, before like pool tables were cool in corporate offices. That's what we beer and ping pong and just a bunch of shenanigans. So that's where I started out, and I felt comfortable there. But just at one point I decided I want to try out corporate culture. I want to see how this feels, because the agency vibe was not working for me in that season of life. It was just a lot of party, and it was, as the mullet, it was a lot of party in the back, and I needed some business in the front. Yes. So
balance. You needed some balance.
It is a balance. So what happened was I applied for this job in 2000, and I want to say 8-ish, I don't know. And when I sent out my resume, I found uniquely that I was getting more attention in corporate environments when I used Rebecca Rutherford instead of Becky as my name on the resume, which is silly. But what happened then was, when I'd go to these interviews, they would always ask, do you want to go by Rebecca or Becky? And I'd say, Rebecca sounds good, because I knew that's what would get me in the door anyway. And what ended up happening was I got hired in this corporate environment, and I realized pretty quickly that like I felt like a fish out of water. Like I was walking in, I was a fraud. Like I wanted to come in and I wanted to like still carry that agency vibe with me. And I did out of the gate. And some people were kind of like, we don't do that here. So in my head, I started I referred myself as Rebecca Business Person. That was my name. Drop the Rutherford. I was Rebecca Business Person.
What did you look like? What did you look like?
Let me tell you what I looked like. I was a suit wearing, blazer touting, professional. I mean, I didn't have a suitcase, but I had a portfolio, and I played the part. Like I looked around, I read the room. I said, how am I supposed to show up here? And I dropped certain pieces of myself that worked really well in the agency environment in order to kind of acquiesce to the vibe that I needed to have in order to tamper those feelings of like, I don't belong here. And if in hindsight, like Rebecca Business Person was suffering from imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
It worked really well for me for about 2 years. But I was at this company for 4 years. So you can imagine how that ended. At some point, your inner conflict with yourself, it becomes too strong, and you have to make a decision. Am I that person that I was in the past that I shed in order to fit into this environment? Or what pieces of that can I bring back because that's what makes me feel more comfortable? And ultimately, I became a blend of the two. And I
Yeah.
stopped thinking about myself as Rebecca business person, although it still comes up every now and then. I will get glimmers of it and I'm like, oh, I'm Rebecca business person right now. And I need to decide, is this who I want to be in this environment?
Yeah.
That's me. I like yours better.
No, no, they're both so relevant because here's what was resonating for me, what you were sharing. It was back to the research that you said. So how you were showing up to others and the narrative you were telling yourself
Yeah.
were totally not who you were. Like there was pieces that weren't mismatching on the outside and the inside.
Right.
And then you're like, yeah, that worked for 2 years. And then no, like,
Yeah. Right.
I was coming out of college, same thing, Angela. So my whole life I was called Angie. Same thing. I'm a professional now. I got my first big girl job. I am now switching to Angela.
Right.
Like, I'm going to be Angela. That worked for like less than 6 months. I just literally was like, no, this is not, I can't.
Yeah.
And so now, like, I mean, look, it's Angie. I am Angie.
Right. Exactly. But you're not
Who has Slimer as my saboteur. Now, the thing is, with Slimer, though, I have to recognize when he gets really big, like when he wraps his arm around me. So the work around imposter syndrome is, hey, Slimer, you're part of who I am.
Yeah.
I need you to stay in my pocket.
Yeah.
And when I feel you kind of reaching out and you're going to stop me, we're going to have a conversation.
Yeah. You got to give Slimer a slimy little hug and like get to be buds with Slimer, because what happens to you when you resist Slimer?
Yeah.
He's louder.
I splatter and he gets I can't breathe.
Literally,
I can't breathe. I'm stuck. Yeah. I'm like,
yeah.
And here's the thing about the imposter syndrome, or maybe our imposters, like who like our inner critic a little bit. Isn't it there for a reason? Like it does have a purpose.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think if you go back to what we've learned about primitive times, where we are designed to feel safety in numbers. So we are hardwired in our brains to want to blend in. And the major fear, if you drill down very deep, is that you're afraid, I'm afraid, Rebecca business person is afraid, and Slimer is telling you that there's a high risk in this situation that if people find out that you are not right for whatever it is that you're trying to do, that they're going to cast you out, and then you're going to be left to fend for yourself in the scary world of, like, you're going to have to go hunt your own game and collect your own berries out in the wild.
Yeah.
So it truly is a survival tendency.
It's an armor. It's protection. And if I fully take off my armor, so Slimer's there to protect me. And I got to say thanks, but I got to go do some cool stuff and make an impact in the world. So if I unarmor myself, which means I'm now vulnerable, I have taken off the armor, the protection. You're absolutely right. I'm exposed. And I might be the only one going to do the thing. Right.
Yeah. But I think the point too is that, everybody wants to know, how can I never have a Slimer again? How can there never be a Rebecca business person? And the truth of the matter is, that's just a part of us that's hardwired, and you can learn to become better about embracing that, but it's going to probably show up again. The idea is that you deal with it with a little bit more grace for yourself, knowing that that's going to happen.
Yeah, I work a lot with clients on getting to know their imposter syndrome, getting to know their inner critic, personifying it, naming it. Yeah. And the goal is not to kill it.
Right. So
because it is a part to exactly what you're saying. The goal is to build a healthy relationship with it and know when it's showing up, why, acknowledge it, thank it for what it's trying to do, and then put it back in its dang place. The whole thing is, you don't want your inner critic to drive your car.
Right. Exactly.
So go ahead.
I want to know too, because it's really easy to see how that shows up in the workplace, but when it comes to imposter syndrome as any other role that you serve, mom, daughter, friend, etc., do you see it showing up any differently for you? Is there a Slimer?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's then again, for me, it's acknowledge. So I think like the takeaway here
Mhm.
today is acknowledging. Can we all acknowledge, as like with our group, we all have it.
Yes.
We're all here. You met Rebecca, businesswoman. She's very professional, by the way.
Ordinarily, yes.
You've met Slimer. For any of you guys who have seen Ghostbusters, I'm aging myself here, so maybe not. Just know that it's a big green monster that shows up. We all have them.
Yeah.
So how can we stop trying to fight it? And Rebecca, I think that's what you're saying, is how do we stop to fight it and literally take the chains off and just
Right.
get to know how do you get curious?
Yes.
And stop judging your imposter syndrome. And how do you get curious?
Yeah.
Maybe a takeaway is today is get to know your imposter. Who are they?
Yeah. Be
What's
cognizant.
it look like?
Yeah. Where does it show up in your life?
Where does it show
And
up?
I have to be honest, I'm already brainstorming new names for my various imposter syndromes. So, because Rebecca
it's ever evolving.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's probably a mom slammer out there for me too, in my role as a mother, and the insecurities I have about, am I doing this right? So I love that, Angie. I think that's extraordinarily useful. So next time, I think we're at time here on this topic, right?
So thanks for tuning in, listeners, to episode 1 of What in the Well.
That's our jingle. So next
jingle.
time,
What in the well.
I love it. And I love the little shake you did there with the shoulders. We need a TikTok dance.
Okay. It's coming.
So next time though, I think 'tis the season to think about how to thrive, not just survive through the holidays, or any holiday. It's relevant, obviously, right now being December 1st, but I am very excited to kind of dissect with you the next time we meet, actually, how it's going so far, because we'll be into December and in the throes of holiday fare, and how somebody can not succumb to all of the chaos of the holidays and just truly be present and enjoy the heck out of it. I would love to know. So I'm going to think about that a little bit.
Yeah, me too. I haven't mastered this one, so this will be a great topic for all of us to be learning together.
No, I go into fight, flight, or freeze. So I'm working on it. All right. Well, that's
awesome.
it for today. Thank you, Angie.